So what's in store for Bitcoin's price? Where are we going to go from here? What is the trade after the ETF? That's what we're going to look at today on Crypto Intel. My name is Max. Let's get started. So let's go right to the charts here. Let me just make myself a little bit smaller. Let's first take a look at Bitcoin. And we can see on the daily chart that Bitcoin is really in a range. And the real key, I think, to the price action right now after the ETF is Bitcoin going to drop for a dip now, or is it going to pump a little bit more, have a little bit of dip later, or is it going to just keep going straight up? I mean, those are the three possibilities. And I think if you look at sentiment on crypto Twitter or crypto X, YouTube, and so forth, there's pretty much of a consensus that we're going to see a drop between now and the halving, which is in April. So that's possible. That has been what's happened in the past cycles. When we get 2 or 3 months before the halving or around the halving, we usually have a drop before we have the next big run and the full bull market parabola. So that is something that we need to be aware of and prepare for. The way that I look at it is this. Right now we're ranging. The first break of, let's say, around 40,000, that would be a sign that we're probably going to go lower. Then I would see around 38,000. If we break that, we'll probably go down to the low 30s. I don't think we would go too much lower. You can see by all these wicks that every time we do have a dip, it seems to be getting bought up. And because of the ETF, I do think that the dips in this cycle are going to be smaller. I would say between 15 to 20% as opposed to 25 to 35%. So, for instance, a 20%, let's say a 20% dip from where we are now, I mean, that would bring us right around to that 32,000 area, which is, I think, about as low as I would expect the dip to go. Could be lower, nothing is a certainty, but that's what I would expect. Now, on the other hand, if we do get above the closing high for this range here, then I do expect that we might not get a dip at all, at least in the short term. That, in the next month or so, we might be trending up a little bit more. And, but first I'd have to see us go from this 41.5 level past the high of this range, which was at about 47. So that's where I think. Now, what is going to have the most influence? I think that is going to be the inflows and outflows of the ETF. Okay, so if you take a look here, I think I have it. Yeah, BitMEX Research has posted where the inflows and outflows are. And of course, if you don't know, the real key here is what is happening with Grayscale as opposed to all of the other ETFs. Grayscale is having outflows. In other words, people who were in the Grayscale Trust are selling their Grayscale Trust and moving it into the ETF of Grayscale. And so what that is doing is that it's putting more Bitcoin supply into the market. But that actually, at this point, is being bought up by all the other ETFs. So you can see here that if you look at the total spot ETF, you see that the total inflow is 1,178,000,000. And you can see here that on the just in the last week or so, we've been having a net positive. And the last day was on the 19th, which was yesterday. That was a net positive. So, basically, I think what it's showing is that while there is outflows coming from the GTBC trust, the inflows from all the other ETFs are making up for that, and maybe even more than making up for that. Now, here's the thing that I don't think many people are keeping in mind. The reason why people are moving out of the GTBC trust is for really one or two reasons. One is they want to get lower fees. The GTBC trust fees are 1.5%. Everybody else is at 0.25% or so. But countervailing to that is the fact that if they do move into another trust, then they're going to have to pay capital gains. Now, granted, a lot of the big players here have been in this over a year, so their capital gains isn't like income, but it's still a cost that has to be considered. My opinion is that the most of the movement is going to happen in the first couple weeks. People are going to decide, okay, I'm either going to do this or not. I'm going to stay in because of the capital gains the capital gain cost is going to keep me in the trust or not. And that decision, I think, has already been made by most of the people in the trust. They're not going to make that decision a month from now or 2 months from now. They're going to make it in the first few weeks. So if we see a leveling off of the outflows against the inflows into the Bitcoin ETFs, then I think that it's only going to go even or slightly lower from here. So that is a positive sign. To me, that means that the Bitcoin price is probably going to move. And I'm not the only one who's thinking that. If you look here, James Van Straten had a post on X where he's talking about, he says, retail is exhausted in terms of buying, and now is in aggressive distribution. But whales are accumulating. And that's where the smart money is. Whales are, he says, look at the 10K Bitcoin whales have drastically reduced their distribution. They already have gone out of the market. Now they're going to start going back in. So he sees this as a sign that the Bitcoin price can go up. So while on crypto Twitter and on YouTube there's a lot of sentiment for a big drop, and it's certainly possible. It is also possible that we can drop only slightly, maybe 5 or 10% more, and then start moving up from there. So that's where I think we are. And also Eric Balkunis has also said that the Grayscale Trust is one of the first securities solely invested in the Bitcoin. The trust is passively investing in Bitcoin. And here's the big point. The percent premium has now gone into the negative. So that is more incentive for people to stay in the trust as opposed to sell their position and go into another Bitcoin ETF. So let's go back to the charts. And, if we look at some of the altcoins and see what kind of direction that is telling us about the market. And of course, the obvious place to start is in Ethereum, because in the past, I'd say month or so, Ethereum has been leading the market. If we look at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart, you can see that, Ethereum has been failing against Bitcoin through, most of January, but is in the past, 3 or 4 days, it's really been aggressively moving. Since the ETF, it's been aggressively moving better than Bitcoin. And that is probably for a couple of reasons. But the main reason probably is that, people are thinking, well, Bitcoin has an ETF, we're probably going to see an Ethereum ETF, and that's going to mean that the price is going to be moving up. People are going to move money into Ethereum in hopes that an ETF for Ethereum, which may happen as early as March or May, could really drive the price up. And just if you look just at the chart, the Ethereum BTC chart, you see we have high here, lower high, lower high, lower high, and now a higher high. So we are breaking out of that diagonal line here, and we are looking at some movement, and it looks like Ethereum is starting to lead the market. In other words, I think if we don't have a big drawdown from Bitcoin, I think Ethereum is telling us that we're probably going to see some movement up. And if you look here, you can see that, let me just draw this. Wait. Let me get the thing here. This to me looks like a bullish flag here, right? If we look on Ethereum USD, same thing. Now it could break down, could break up, but this to me looks like a pennant. And so it could be that we start to see Ethereum on the move. And if Ethereum is on the move, then some of the altcoins that are connected to Ethereum, like the L1s and so forth, they can be on the move too. So those are some of the things that I think are pointing towards maybe we do get a smaller dip than people think, and then we start to move up again. Because basically, at this point in the cycle, we are going to see some dips before the halving. But once we have a 20 or 30% dip, then it's probably going to be just kind of up and to the right from there. That's all I have for today. If you like the content, please give us a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.